these heavy studies are often still considered pseudoscience by doubters, and it's difficult to know where the burden of proof actually lies. Still, scientists, at least open-minded ones of the Einstein variety, continue to be fascinated by the unknown. Some specialists focus on children who claim to dream about and even actively remember their past lives. Others test the supposed abilities of mediums and other potentially gifted individuals. The more mainstream scientific community may scoff at these avenues of research, but certain academics and scientists continue to press onwards in their studies of parapsychology. Ready to be convinced? Below are a handful of case studies that are worth considering. Let's go. Number 1. Dr. Tucker studied a reincarnated fighter pilot. Hold on, excuse me, let me put my spectacles on for this. That's better. Dr. Jim Tucker is a child psychologist and associate professor of psychiatry and neurobehavioral sciences at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. He has worked with many children who have inexplicably recounted memories that are not their own, that are often linked to real-life individuals who lived decades in the past and thousands of miles away. One of his most convincing cases concerned a boy named James Lininger. I think I read about this kid in a previous video when I was reading about kids who remember their past lives. Very fascinating stuff. James Lininger, who at age 2 began having terrible nightmares of violent plane crashes. According to this article, Lininger was able to recount vivid details about World War II military operations. He also, and inexplicably, knew a great deal about fighter jets. Most significantly, however, Lininger was able to recall the name of a real aircraft carrier and a real soldier. One James Huston, who had actually died near Iwo Jima. Every detail the boy put forth has since been verified. There's no way of proving the story in the linear sense, but, as Tucker pointed out to NPR in a 2014 interview, it seems absolutely impossible that Lininger could have somehow gained this information as a 2-year-old through some sort of normal means. I don't know. Pretty convincing. Number 2, a 4-year-old told UVA he was a reincarnated film agent. A few years ago, Dr. Jim Tucker of the University of Virginia made headlines when he began investigating a young boy named Ryan Hammond. According to reports, Hammond had had vivid nightmares from a very early age. Ones that almost invariably concluded with him waking up in the middle of the night screaming and clutching his chest, saying he had dreamt his heart exploded when he was in Hollywood. One night while the boy was still in preschool, he told his mother that he suspected he'd once been someone else. Hammond's mother visited the local library and took out some books on old Hollywood, hoping that their photographs would somehow help to pacify her son. To her surprise, the child immediately gravitated toward a still from a 1930s film called Night After Night. He identified himself as one Marty Martin, who turned out to have been a Hollywood agent who had died of a heart attack. Hammond also accurately described Martin's family and the home he had lived in back in the 40s. Number 3, a 2001 study finds consistency in near-death experiences. Near-death experiences are so fascinating to me. I could read those stories all day. In 2001, the UK-based medical journal The Lancet published a study on NDEs, near-death experiences in hospitals. The 13-year trial was conducted by Dr. Pim van Lommel, a prominent researcher in the field of near-death studies. Van Lommel's trials, which were conducted in 10 different Dutch medical facilities, involved 344 patients who had actually died for a significant number of minutes. Eventual findings revealed that 18% of the patients had some memory from their period of unconsciousness, and 12%, 1 out of every 8, had what the physicians called a core or deep NDE. Their NDE experiences included out-of-body perception, moving through a tunnel, communication with light, blissful feelings, observation of a celestial landscape, meeting with deceased persons, life review, and presence of a border. Moreover, when said patients were interviewed years later, their stories were still completely consistent. Number 4, Cornell University tested how humans can anticipate the future. Ooh. You might not associate Cornell with psychic research, but Daryl Bem, professor emeritus of psychology, has an impressive track record of his own. In 2010, the results of one of Bem's most notable studies were finally published. As the Cornell Chronicle put it, the 8-year study, which spanned 9 experiments and included more than 1,000 participants, ended up offering evidence that humans have some ability to anticipate the future. Bem's experiments were apparently based on people's ability to respond to events before stimulus was presented. In the end, all but one of the 9 experiments confirmed the hypothesis that PSI, psychic phenomena, exists. The study was subsequently published by the American Psychological Association's Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. Number 5, the University of Arizona tested mediums. Gary E. Schwartz, professor of psychiatry and neurology at the University of Arizona, and Julie Beischel, a member of the Society for Scientific Exploration and the Society for Psychical Research, are highly respected figures in the parapsychology world. One of their most notable studies took place in conjunction with the University of Arizona's Laboratory for Advances in Consciousness and Health, LACH. The project was designed to test the accuracy of mediums in receiving information about deceased people. In this experiment, 8 University of Arizona students, 4 of whom had experienced the death of a parent and 4 of whom had experienced the death of a peer, were paired with 8 mediums. The mediums in question didn't know the students or their deceased acquaintances, and all pairings were conducted remotely. Nevertheless, the study's findings ultimately and convincingly suggested that certain mediums could anomalously receive accurate information about deceased individuals. Number 6, the CIA's Stargate project experimented with remote viewing. In 1978, the CIA launched the Stargate project, a top-secret experiment in remote viewing, which has been defined as the ability to see or sense events from a distance. Designed to explore potential in espionage, the study yielded many remarkable findings before it was suspended in the late 1980s. In 1995, the CIA finally declassified the project's files. According to sources, one of the project's co-founders, Russell Tark, reportedly carried out a 10,000-mile remote viewing experiment between Moscow and San Francisco with Juna Davitashvili, a prominent Russian healer. Davitashvili. I am butchering that, I just know it, but whatever, it's fine. Successfully described the whereabouts of an individual professor apparently described a secret Soviet weapons lab after being given its geographical coordinates. Damn. Skeptics may scoff, but the powers that be did not. The study's results were apparently convincing enough to warrant a formal congressional investigation to determine if there had been a breach in national security. Whoa. Number 7, the University of Southampton finds proof of life after death. In 2014, scientists at the University of Southampton unveiled the results of a trial that has been called the largest ever medical study into near-death and out-of-body experiences ever. It involved approximately 2,060 people living in the United Kingdom, United States, and Austria, 40% of whom described some kind of awareness before they were revived. Number 8, the Rhine Research Center used cards to test people for ESP. The Rhine Research Center is one of the oldest accredited paranormal research societies in the United States. Originally founded by Joseph Banks Rhine and his colleague psychologist William McDougall, the organization began as the Parapsychology Research Lab at Duke University. Eventually it broke off from the college and became its own institution, with its emphasis on everything from post-mortem survival to psychic phenomena such as telepathy and clairvoyance. The organization has attracted attention from eminent scholars from all over the world. In the 1920s, researchers began to study extrasensory perception, or ESP. The center's most famous tests involve specially designed cards, which would be held up out of sight of a test subject. The participants would then guess the design on the card, and many guessed in ways that were far too uncanny to be the product of mere luck. The Rhine continues to be criticized by skeptics, but it also has decades of legitimate research to its name. And last but not least, number 9, Princeton University tried to psychically transmit information. Much like the Great Beyond itself, Princeton's Pear Laboratory, as the New York Times described it, was an anomaly from the start. A ghost in the machine of physical science that was never acknowledged as substantial, and yet never entirely banished. The lab was a controversial part of the university for almost 30 years, but when it closed for good in 2007, it had more than a few notable experiments to its credit. Many of these studies involved attempts to psychically transmit information. According to researchers, in most tests, the receiver got the information from the sender precognitively, up to several days before it was sent. More specifically, most of the experiments demonstrated precognitive intervals of up to approximately 150 hours, which equates to nearly a week. That concludes the article for the evening. I find this stuff so fascinating. I hope you guys found it interesting and enjoyed it. I might also start working in some psychology stuff. I am such a psychology nerd, and I had a psychology YouTube channel before this, a while before this actually. I did videos on interesting psychological studies that have been